To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked a happy place where each week we combine imagination with our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I am Ron Berner. That is, of course, Mr. FreshBaked himself, the indelible David Erickson, and this is the FreshBaked Presents podcast, episode 2. Thanks for joining us, where today we talk Magic Key Pass. What effect will it have on reservations and crowds? We'll dig into the mailbag to answer your questions, and of course, our 5 things. So, David, Magic Key Pass, the new membership program Disney's rolling out that replaces annual passes, of course, will be available for purchase next Wednesday, August 25th.
God, is it next Wednesday already?
I know. It was hurry up and wait kind of a thing, right?
Wow.
Now that we know the tiers and the day one, essentially, details, what immediate impact do you think we'll see on the reservation system, park crowds, and all of that stuff? Just up front first, then we'll get into the real good stuff. The floor is yours.
Well, the immediate impact, I think it's going to be busier. It's going to feel busier in the park. It's going to be busier in the park. I think that there's no doubt about it that the crowd levels have been super low since the park opened. There's been a few instances where it's felt busy, but for the most part, again, this is something that we talked about in a video previously, where some people said, "No, I feel it's busy. It's busy. The park is busy." No. You don't. Did we forget? Did we forget what busy used to look like at Disneyland? No, it has never. There's not been a single day at Disneyland since it's reopened that has been busy, like actual busy.
Right.
The peak crowds maybe 35,000. That's the highest I think we've probably been since the parks reopened. So it will. There is a subset of guests, a subset of Disneyland guests who have been waiting for this very moment. They have been waiting for an annual pass. They've been waiting for August 25th to happen, and those guests will show up. Not all of them, but certainly right. A fair percentage of them will. So you're going to get your single day ticket holders, you're going to get your multi-day ticket holders, and you're going to get that subset of annual pass holders who are back. The only question about whether or not it'll be super busy is whether or not Disney is also ready. We're going to be ready. A majority of the pass holders, et cetera, will be ready. But will Disney be ready? Because as we've been seeing lately, or hearing, they're still not staffed. Disneyland is still not prepared for a full-scale invasion of guests into the park. They can barely handle what's happening now. I'm hearing all kinds of stories about issues with guest service. A lot of that has to do with the EDD or unemployment, things like that. People are staying on unemployment. They're choosing not to come back to work until that ends, just because. Why go to work at Disney when you're getting paid by the government? There's that conversation, which I don't want to get into that specifically, but there is a set of those folks who are doing this. I would imagine that ends in September. So the first month or so, it's going to be busier, yes, but it's not going to be fully busy, I don't think, because Disney's still not going to be fully allocating. They're not going to unleash the capacity limits. They're going to keep it low still, I believe, because they can't handle major crowds yet.
I would actually totally agree with that. I don't think the main point I was going to make is training and staffing. Yeah. It will be a slow roll into that, and even like supply chain. There's just other areas that come into play that they're not accustomed to, that they're not prepped for.
Supply chains are still a problem today.
Correct.
Yeah. What is it over at the Harbor Galley? Just last week, you could get a bread bowl again. They were serving. I don't know if you saw this. They were serving at the Harbor Galley. They were serving clam chowder in a cup.
Oh, no, I knew that. I just didn't realize the bread bowls were back.
We got a bread bowl last weekend, so that's the thing.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
And that's what that is. That's 100% supply chain stuff. People we're still recovering. We're still recovering.
Well, exactly. I totally agree with that. I think this conversation is going to go into that a little bit too when we start talking about what does Magic Key Pass mean, like, not this week or next month, but down the road. And I guess to that end, what do you think? So crowds, reservations, do you think there's a reservation issue that's going to be presented? I know the crowds are going to go up. I agree with that. Do you think reservations out of the gates are going to be a problem?
I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm kind of 50-50 on this, actually, because I go back and forth. Initially, when the parks first opened up and we started to see the crowds not showing like I thought they would, I really thought that, like Disney, pent-up demand was going to bring in a bunch of people, no matter if there was passes or not. I really thought that people were just going to be like, Disney, yes, let's do this. They didn't. I mean, some did, but they didn't. I felt like it was a battle for reservations, the battle between the people who just did not. They were against reservations, and it's a test of wills. Who can hold out the longest? Can Disney hold out the longest and keep the reservation system because even though people aren't showing up? Or will pass holders hold out longer because they don't want reservations, or a subset of them don't, not all of them. Some are fine with them. I'm okay with them myself. I can deal with it. I would rather they not, but I'm willing to work with it. But those pass holders who didn't want to go to a Disneyland without being able to go whenever they wanted, who's going to can they hold out longer than Disney can hold out? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like we won't know until after September, until we get to the holidays and into the Halloween season.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the reservation system. I mean, everybody's gonna the floodgates are gonna open. Everybody's gonna go to it, and of course, since you get 6, everybody's gonna utilize 6, and they're gonna take advantage of doing that. But I think it's just going to be a slow. People are going to be buying at different times because they can't buy it unless they do the upgrade until they actually show up to the park. And of course, I don't think everybody's going to show up that first day, that first weekend. So that'll be slow. I do think reservations are going to be a problem initially, but when I say a problem, I just mean because everybody's going to book them like crazy.
You mean in terms of them being sold out? You won't be able to get one.
Yeah, I think that, and I only say that initially. I don't think it's going to be a problem, big picture problem at all.
I don't either. But the one thing that worries me, I go back to, okay, so when we did a video about the possibility that reservation systems could end if a certain set of criteria were met, if people continued to not show, etc. Then Disney might just say, you know what, we need more people in the park, we're going to open it up, no reservations. I was surprised at how many people wanted or were okay with reservations or believed that it wasn't a problem. I was surprised that there weren't more people who were against the reservation system because it offers no tangible benefit whatsoever to the average guest. No tangible benefit. There's nothing for us to gain. Now, some might say, but David, it's gonna keep the crowd levels low. Maybe, maybe, you don't know, because Disney. The reason why we're not feeling the crowds now is because Disney is limiting capacity. There is nothing to suggest that Disney wouldn't just flood the reservation system with APs and go straight to 80% capacity, or 80,000 people when the time is right. And they just let in all the APs. We could fill the park easy. So the reservation system doesn't stop us from doing that. Disney's stopping us from doing that.
Allegedly. And my thought process on this whole thing is it was the Wild Wild West before, right? We could go not only could we go every single day if we had the Signature or Signature Plus, not only could we go every day, we could go in and out of the park, meaning people often would show up at 4 or 5. I myself have gone simply for fireworks. Like, it's a good date night. Go for dessert and fireworks, things of that nature. So the reservation system, to me, I think in terms of business, Disney, they might control. They want the data. They're not going to stop people from going and spending money. They're just not.
Right.
So the reservation system feels like, yes. In a way, they can do it to manipulate, but let's just say on a given day that it looks like it's booked. Do you think they can't flip a switch for those random people that try to come in later in the afternoon?
100%.
Okay, that's what I mean. That's why it's a much ado about nothing.
Right. That's what, and I said that in the video. I said, just hang in there. Just hang in there. come back tomorrow and see if that date's still closed. That kind of thing. And that's the part that scares me the most about the reservation system is we have no idea. We have no idea how many reservations there are supposed to be. It could be 10, it could be 100, it could be 1,000. We have no idea. And so they could artificially manipulate those reservations any way they want. They could hold them back and set them aside, but if they're not getting the results they want, then they dump them back to the APs, day of or day before or whatever.
I think they want to see what they see because I don't think that they know at this point. Because you got to remember, from a business standpoint, just as also the reason that when the Magic Key Passes were announced, and we were all thrilled that they were essentially what they were before. From a business standpoint, think about how you feel when you lose your live stream. You just hope everybody joins back up, right? So
right.
I know we're all going to go back to Disney, of course, but they lost 1 million loyal customers in a drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. So they had to get them back. And how do you get them back on the hook? Is you give them what they had essentially. There's some tweaks or whatever, but even that's a pricing strategy from the standpoint of okay, only this one gives you free parking. So you're automatically upgrading because you want the free parking, or you don't pay for the free parking and you just pay for the parking every single time you go. Either way, it's kind of working out in their benefit.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing.
I'm certain that the program that they released is not the one they wanted to release.
Well, I think that I agree with 100% with that. And I think they released that program to get us back on the hook. Like now, I think it's fair to say, again, I'm always thinking in the revenue business model in terms of what makes the most sense. So what makes the most sense is your lowest hanging fruit in almost any business is not new leads. New leads are expensive. It's hard to get a new lead. What you want is the customer lifetime value. And that is the people that continue to buy your product, that continue to show up, and that continue to spend money. That loyalty, that's why they're calling this a loyalty program. But that retention is what is the most lowest hanging fruit for most businesses. So really what I feel like what they did is they came back and they gave us essentially what we had to get us back on the hook. Now come February, which is usually the price increase, I wouldn't be if the demand is high, I wouldn't be surprised to see a significant increase because now they can start to get us into the world that they want us in because they got us back on the hook. But to your point earlier, if the demand isn't what we thought it was. Like Avengers Campus lasted a hot minute in terms of waiting outside, and even Galaxy's Edge was only 2 weeks before we could just walk right in. So if the AP or the Magic Key Pass, if the demand isn't through the roof and the numbers aren't whatever they deem solid numbers for them are, come the end of the year or early January, February, then there may not be significant price increases because they just they're not going to say, okay, it's not working as it is. We certainly are not going to raise the prices significantly. But if it is, now we can get them where we want them.
Your logic is sound, but I do think they will raise prices because they've never not raised prices.
For sure. I don't mean that. I mean how much they raise.
Right. I going back to what you said earlier in terms of growing new leads as opposed to cultivating the current base that you have already. This is something that I'm going to be watching for because one thing that it is my understanding, you're probably more well-versed in this than I am, but it is more profitable to take your current customer base and grow them vertically as opposed to horizontally. It's not better to have more guests. It's better to have guests that spend more. The same guests spend more. That is one major issue that they have not been able to. We're not spending. They're not spending in the parks today like they were, and even then, what they were spending wasn't enough for Bob Chapek. He wants more, and that's exactly why the parking situation happened. And it's gonna, and they're gonna have to figure something out as far as that goes. I do expect, though. I fully expect this was a teaser. This is almost like the first one is free, the pricing.
Agreed.
Right. I'm making an analogy. You guys can fill in the blanks. The first one is free. Then, and then you get hooked and then they start raising the prices and stuff like that. I am positive, that we will see not a modest increase, but I'm positive we'll see a big increase in February, even if they don't get the numbers that they want. Just because I think that's always been the plan. The only thing that I feel like the variable is reservations, and because they're not getting the people who do want to spend. You know, the annual pass holders spend more than people think. They're the ones who are buying the drinks. They're the ones who are buying the Instagrammable food and the novelty T-shirts. If they're not in the park, then they're not spending the money. So I don't know. It's going to be September and October are going to tell us a lot. They're going to tell us a lot.
Yeah, they are. There are a couple things. There are devices in place to get us to spend more money when we're in the parks. We'll get into that in a second. But what I was going to say in terms of business aspects, the AP, that's just a great misunderstanding, I think. So you're telling me that the family that comes one time, not you, but in terms of like what this whole, like,
sure,
the conversation has been that the new family of 4 comes in for a 3 or 4 day spend, they spend more than an AP. No. That one trip a year versus an AP's expenses for the year is not more. Now, I do agree. They want more buckets, right? So the new person to come in, they want to get them hooked, and they can hopefully come annually once a year, and those sorts of things. So obviously, you always want more and new customers, but that's what the loyalty programs are: is to take care of what you have, because what you have is buttering your bread for sure, and that's why they want control. And you said this as well. They want to know the numbers. They want to know who's coming to the park, and they want to know who's in the park, and they want us to be spending money. That's why they're giving us discounts on it. And the discounts on APs are the same as, you know how when the Lakers were in LA, or California, so you know the Lakers score 100 points and Taco Bell gives you a free taco, right? A free 39-cent taco. You're not going to Taco Bell. You're not making a trip to go to Taco Bell to get that free 39-cent taco. You're spending money, right? So it's all strategy to get you to actually spend more money. And the other thing I initially said was to get us to spend more money is this great mystery around this genie is, it's in my mind it's like Waze for driving. So it tells you the best way to get through traffic if there's an accident or whatever. And all this is RFID tracking. They know exactly where we are. So that means, I think, maybe I'm wrong and maybe this is illegal, but I don't think so when you're on their property, in their park with their app. But I think they're now going to know when we exit. They're going to know when we're gone. They're going to know the numbers on a roundabout way based off of that. And they're also getting us out of queues, which I also talk about crowds. This genie is maybe a problem when it comes to the crowds. It might get us into the rides quicker, maybe, or whatever it is. I don't even really know. I'm just kind of totally speculating here. But what I think the idea is, they want us out of queues so you can't buy food and you can't buy merchandise when you're standing in a queue for an hour.
Sure, that's been the logic behind fast passes since the very beginning.
Right.
That's a whole other conversation, the fast pass conversation, which we could probably get into, or I'll do a video about that. I'm not sure, because I've got, just so much notes that I've been taking on fast pass and paid fast pass. But that's
right.
Another conversation.
Talk about something that's going to come back very expensive, I think.
Yeah. You had mentioned. The difference between an annual pass holder spending versus a single day ticket holder, and I've had that same conversation with myself many times. I think what they're trying to do is, because they're getting a lot. They still, even though we spend more or as much over the course of a year, I think there's a lot of empty visits also for. There's a certain kind of pass holder that doesn't spend any money in the parks at all.
That is true.
There's
a way to get away with doing that.
They want those guys. They want to make more room for that single day visitor to come in. They want more of that. What they want us to be is Disney World. They want Disneyland to be Disney World. As a matter of fact, they're using the strategies that they're using today are Disney World strategies, because they've been imagined by Disney World executives. These are people the Disneyland people the staff, the cast members, whatever.
Yep.
They're not here anymore. So a lot of these programs and a lot of these decisions are being crafted by people who come from from Florida, and now they're going. Now they're all going to Florida.
Right. And you know what? That conversation came up however many years ago it's been now with that. Remember that whole big hotel situation that was coming in? They wanted, at least at that point, that conversation really became, we're a country club. Disneyland is a country club. We know it. And I feel like it is. And I love it. And I see the same faces constantly. It is a country club vibe, and Disney World is a destination location, and they definitely want to get Disneyland a little bit closer to that side of the fence.
So now let's get back to that, though. Let's get back to the immediate and long-term effects on reservations, because I think that you had mentioned initially that there's 2 passes that give you 6 reservations. Is that right? I think Believe gives you 6 also.
Yeah. Yes, Believe gives you.
I would just want to make sure.
I have it in
6
front of me.
reservations.
Yep, up to 6, correct. And then the next one is Enchant is 4.
So do you think, knowing that in the past as an annual pass holder, there was never a day, I was never worried, ever, except for maybe a couple days a year of getting into the park. It never even would have been a consideration for me that I would have been turned away at the gate. I've seen it happen a couple times during the holidays, New Year's, something like that. But on the whole, 99% of the time you go to the park, you're getting in. With that in mind, do you imagine a scenario where you book your 6 days and you use one? Like, are you planning to be aggressive or conservative with how you manage your 6 days? Are you going to? I guess that's the question that others are going to want to have an answer to as well. Do you believe that, for me, for example, I might just book 6 days in a row? I'm not even worried about 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. I might just book those 6 days, and then when I use one, I'm gonna assume that 7th day will be there, and then the 8th day will be there, and the 9th day will be there. Does that worry you at all?
It does not. And for one thing, I'm a weekend warrior. I'll go every Saturday. I'll just rotating schedule every Saturday. As soon as I get one available, I'm booking the Saturday. Again, it's almost like, are we talking about windows of time? Initially, I do think reservations they're going to play with it being booked. They probably might even just say it. But when the dust settles, I do not think there will ever be a blocked out Disneyland day. I just don't. Because the reason I say that is because even when it was a packed day, remember, it was the Wild Wild West with the annual pass. It was the Wild Wild West. Anybody could go. Well, obviously, if they had a pass, in addition to those people that just showed up. And even then, they didn't come close to capacity. Yes, it was super crowded, but they don't really hit those capacity numbers that they're allowed to have by the fire marshal. So, in other words, the alternative being that they say, no, it's too busy. What they're saying is, we don't want your money. I don't see that happening. I don't think there was going to be any fear of a reservation in my mind.
The only catch to that is going to be staffing. And I feel like this conversation has, it's going to be before or after they figure out, September and
great
staffing.
Point. It's an excellent point. So,
and I would say also, I would say also that that when you were just talking about not coming up with or not meeting any days where you would be told to be turned away, I feel like there is a segment of Disney fans who think that Disney is trying to control guest attendance with reservations, and I want to disabuse anybody of that notion that Disney is trying to improve the guest experience by keeping crowds small. They are not doing that. They are not trying to keep crowds small to improve guest experience. They want the parks as full as they can possibly get them.
Totally
every day,
agree.
Every single day. There is no doubt in my mind that as soon as they're able, they will.
I totally agree with that. And it's interesting because we never discussed any of this stuff ahead of time. And I actually came into this with that. I didn't know what you were going to say, but I totally agree with that point. And follow the money. Like, just think about that. Like, when people were talking about initially that, the the Magic Key passes can sell out. And my argument to that is that's like Gold's Gym, literally Gold's Gym saying, we're good. We got enough members. Like, it's not going to. It's not going to happen. They are. I just think Wild Wild West, the way it was before, everything was perfectly fine. Sure, there's busy days, but everything was perfectly fine. For them to stop selling annual passes or Magic Key passes, these are follow the money, and the money says there's no way either one of those things can happen.
That's a cute idea.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Anything you want to add, David, to button this up? It's certainly going to be a conversation that we continue having down the road, just as things unfold. But anything you want to button it up with?
Yes, actually. Long term, I feel like Disney's going to win this fight. I feel like Disney's going to, if they want reservations, if they're going to dig in, they will win that fight long term. If it may not happen right away, but over the I'm talking decades, Disney can just they might disenfranchise some of their annual pass holders with the reservation system. They might lose some guests, but on a long enough timeline, they will just grow new guests. They're going to grow new guests, grow new people who have no concept of how it used to be, and they just assume that this is how it is, that reservations are how it's done at Disneyland, and that's the way it's going to be. And it's going to feel weird now. Think about FastPass. FastPass began as a guest experience, a thing that would improve the guest experience. And it was free, and it was a way for Disney to make money as well, but it was also to improve the guest experience. They have now monetized, or they're going to monetize FastPass, and they're going to. And for some people, it's like, okay, that's how it is. Some people object. They think, why am I paying for a FastPass when it used to be free? 5 years from now, that conversation won't be a thing. 5 years from now, it's just going to be, that's the way it is. I said this years ago. I said when they first started talking about it, it was like putting a frog in a frying pan and on a low simmer. And you just keep us on a low simmer, and eventually we are going to burn, but we'll have no idea. We'll have no idea it's happened, and then 10 years from now, we're all paying for FastPass and we're all making reservations, and it's just like the way it's supposed to be.
No, I agree. That is true. That's definitely the boiling frogs scenario where we're deaf, dumb, and blind almost, don't even know it, and we're doing it without realizing what happened. Like, wait, how'd that happen? Yeah, I agree. I think I'll say this on what you mentioned earlier about new people coming in or whatever, like a new subset of
growing
fans.
New guests.
Yeah, and then the thing is, I am pleased because with the conversation of when at first whispers of paying for it in full, my immediate response was paying for my Magic Key Pass or annual pass at the time before we knew the name was absolutely, I'll pay for it in full in a heartbeat. And then I was thinking that'll get rid of, maybe some of the traffic. And then after taking a deep breath saying, oh my gosh, that's heartbreaking because there's the families that they just live for this. And then I was like immediately like, no, they absolutely cannot do that. And even the Imagine Key Pass, $3.99 gives you 2 reservations and you can make payments. So I'm like, anybody can go to Disneyland and everybody can go to Disneyland, and that pleases me.
Yeah, I know that's the way it should be. Oftentimes, our first response to news is a selfish one. We see it through our own filter, and we forget to be empathetic. Which that's something I often can try to put myself in other people's shoes, and I 100% agree that I don't want to keep Disneyland from anybody. Right. I want everybody to have a chance to go. So I'm all for payments. I was glad that they did that.
Yeah, I was glad that they did that too. And for the record, that was all about 3 nanoseconds before I was like, wait.
Yeah, right. No, it takes a minute. Yeah. No, you can see the good side and you're like, oh, yeah, well, what about this?
Yeah, I'm super selfish, but I'm also, my heart is with, I'm a softie, man. I know you are. Brings tears to your eyes just to think of that family that might have lost their privileges, or not their privileges, but even like the opportunity to go because they just didn't have the resources for it. So thankfully, that is hopefully not an issue. And on that note, David, I think we'll button that up, even though we're certainly going to be circling back to that to see how that unfolds, because it's especially when the first weekend, first couple of weekends, month, too. So a little bit of fun things. What happened this week in Disney history? David, August 12th, 1929. Does this mean anything to you? Walt Disney was granted a trademark for the use of the image of Mickey Mouse in motion pictures.
Huh.
Who knew?
No.
Yeah.
By the way, that's coming up.
Yeah.
That's what do you call it? The
copyright.
The copyright.
So I haven't done too much research on that, but I know back when I did a little bit. So copyright is not to be confused with trademark. So in the nuts and bolts, without sounding like I know exactly what I'm talking about, first of all, if there was any concern whatsoever, we'd have heard about this for a long time coming. But really what it boils down to, I'm paraphrasing here, but Disney has the trademark, and Disney has always used Mickey Mouse, so they're in zero jeopardy of that's going into the public domain in a copyright they can, but it's still theirs, and they're the ones that use it. So at the end of the day, it's not going to mean a whole lot. Now that's definitely paraphrasing a lot of legalities, but there's nothing to be concerned about. Couple other things quickly, David. Bambi premiered at the U.S. Radio City Music Hall on August 13th, 1942. Dumbo opened at Disneyland August 16th, 1955. And the interesting thing with this was it was supposed to open opening day, just a month. What was it? A month earlier, and was supposed to open, but they wanted floppy ears, and they just couldn't get it to happen. They literally.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Imagine
they
prototypes
wanted
were off
to animate the ears.
They wanted floppy ears. I don't know exactly what that meant, but as you're flying, instead of one unit that the ride vehicle is now, there were like moving parts to the ears would like flop in the wind. So I don't know exactly what the prototype was. That's all I could gather from it. But because of that and budget, just issues with it, they had to delay it for a whole month. So it really should have been and was intended all along to be an opening day attraction. It just never came to fruition because floppy ears. Funny, the Dumbo story, just floppy ears seems to be the theme for Dumbo, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding, right? That's true.
Another
it's connected with the film. Yeah.
right, exactly. Another interesting thing that happened this week that's poignant a little bit is the fire truck began transportation services this week, and Bob Gurr, the legendary Bob Gurr, he did most of the motor vehicles. So the motor vehicles didn't actually come into place. Like horsepower didn't come into the parks until 1956. Horsepower meaning motor cars.
Right.
All before that, it was actual horse-drawn carriages and things.
Yeah, the fire truck was powered by horses, right? Initially?
Right. There was a fire carriage.
Yeah.
And the fire truck, I think, was stationary if it was there at all. I know it didn't start carrying passengers until 58, August 16th of 58. Omnibus was already going. Bob Gurr, who brought several of the motor vehicles there, brought the omnibus in 57 the year before. So the fire truck, I thought that was interesting. Bit of tidbits. Obviously, there's tons and tons of things that happen in this week in Disney history all over the place, but those are the interesting ones that I found. David, mailbag time. Did we get any questions this week? We had a wild response last week. It was tremendous, and we appreciate it.
We did. I think you have the questions though. Yes.
I do. I was just
don't put me on the spot.
I was no. I was just filling. I was trying to fill joy and excitement and all kinds of things.
I am joy. I love mailbag.
I do too, and it's really great. Here's the thing: we can only do a few, right? Time constraints and things of that nature. I would encourage people to, if we didn't get to your question, post it again, because I saw several that I would love to talk about and to answer. It's just time constraints; we can't do them all. So if we don't do yours, please feel free to submit them again. And then that, obviously, if we see it a second time, it's like okay, that's a good reminder. Number one for this week, Carlos came X85. Disney has been criticized for scaling back amenities lately. Will they continue to scale back until guests collectively outcry online or to guest services, or will they continue to scale back until it has a negative impact on the financial quarter?
I would say that, and this is true for a lot of things that we may or may not agree with in terms of decisions that they make. Disney will keep doing a thing until we stop them. until we speak, until we say enough, until we say I don't approve of this or whatever. And that's true for, guest service issues or reservations or paid fast pass or whatever. We have to tell them that we do or do not want to thank. So yes, I think that we're going to continue to see this. I think that they're as long as the parks are having trouble turning a profit, they're going to try to find ways to save money. And I get it. It makes sense. You have to watch the bottom line. But at some point, there's an end to that.
This might be naive, but I almost think Disney's still trying to figure out. I don't think they know. And in a lot of this stuff that's taken place, quite honestly, I don't know how much, like consumer behavior, for example, we just left something that happens every 100 years. Like, I'm not sure if I would make any, have much conviction on too many statements based on the data of consumer behavior or the things of that nature. And certainly just like home, like working from home, the organization I work for had over 1,500 employees or whatever. So to go back to that office is not going to happen. All 1,500 people are not going back, right? So there's the world has changed a little bit in that fashion. And I think maybe with Disney, there might be some of that. I just don't think they know 100% the answer at the moment. So to your point, the amenities, they're going to do some cutbacks. They're not going to be, free spending willy-nilly. And even to that point, so they had, what did they have? It's always been estimated they've had over 30,000 park employees, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So with the changes that are taking place, and I know that they've said most recently that the last report anyway, they had only 19,000 back. So are we getting all 30,000 back? I don't know. I don't know that we're going there. So the change, it's an interesting conversation. I think amenities will come back in the freebie stuff. For example, the fast pass, as you mentioned, or whatever. The free fast pass, that's maybe a goner. That may be a goner. Other amenities, I think most of them are still there. Like the photo pass is still something I don't even know the details on the photo pass anymore. That used to be a part of your thing, because I went there constantly.
I have no idea what photo pass status is right now. I think there's only a paid version of it now, right?
There's only a paid version of it for sure, and they give you a card, like a card that you take the card home and you punch it into the computer, and then it just pops up, and then you could purchase it. Same with the ride photos and stuff. So those type of amenities that were part of the membership program, I don't know if they're coming back, but there's certainly, they've altered the amenities to be sure. And I guess I don't have, I do. I think the offerings are all going to be there, and they're still considered amenities. Amenities doesn't mean free necessarily. It's just that how.
Yeah.
It's just the free things that we're going to lose, though. I guess the only thing that comes to mind is the fast pass, and I don't even know that to be true. I just
I think what Carlos was getting at is more of just, I don't know if it's strictly speaking like the big amenities like fast pass, but just marginalizing the experience, taking away little things here and there. And I will say that this is not a new thing. It's not even a COVID thing necessarily. Some of it is, but they've been doing this for years. The problem is that they're beholden to year over year winning. Revenue increases. It's not enough that you make money. You have to make more than you did, and you see, and sometimes the only way for a company to improve or to show a profit, a year over year gain, is to trim expenses. So you lose some of the detail. You lose some of the some of the things, the quality here and there on the margins, and you don't. The cups aren't as good. The napkins aren't as good. They try to monetize the Main Street cinema, these kind of things. And I think that there's no end in sight for that I can think of. But as guests, if we stop showing up, they're going to have to come up with ways to bring us back. And the way they bring us back is to give us some of those margins back in some ways.
So to your point, so they changed the straws to paper straws, but when you go to Splash Mountain, they give you Ziploc, like bulletproof plastic bags.
Is that a thing? Are they still doing that?
No, but that was one of the. I was trying to think in my head some of the amenities that we used to get that we no longer get. Like I honestly don't know, and that is one, at least currently. So that just popped in my head while you were saying that. So thank you, Carlos, for the question. Good question. New phone who dis asks. Is there a legacy, long-standing ride you think needs to go and be replaced finally? I may make some enemies here, but I think it's time to start thinking about replacing Autopia. That's a lot of space, and they could use to freshen up Tomorrowland.
Is that my turn? Is it? Okay. This is where we fight, Ron. This is where we fight. I will show you these hands. I will show you. If you try to take Autopia away from me, that's a hill that I will die on for the rest of my life. Long live Autopia. You can maybe make it a little smaller if you want, give a little to Fantasyland perhaps, but don't you dare take away Autopia.
Well, then what would you? If you had to do one.
Is there? Do I have to?
Okay. I mean, I think in the nature of the questions, we're forced. Our hand is forced.
Does Star Tours count? Is that long-standing?
I think that absolutely would count. Sure.
All right. Well, then you could burn Star Tours down to the ground and sell it for parts.
Well, he did say he said legacy / long-standing. I don't know that Star Tours is legacy, but I'll play along.
Okay.
It's interesting. The most likely for it to happen, or which one do I want to happen? I think when I read the question, the first two things that came to mind is I do think Autopia is Dead Man Walking, because the only thing, if we're being honest for a second, the only thing it has going for it is nostalgia, and I love it. I love the quiet that you're in the woods. I love that. I'm just saying, for the real, like to the point, the real estate that it takes up is significant. I love that back corner though, like the whole experience of being on it and in the woods, like you're away. Like I love it. It's just an older, antiquated thing. But again, I love that. To say that doesn't mean that I don't absolutely love Autopia. We go on Autopia almost every single time I go.
I was just going to ask you, does Champ like Autopia?
He does like Autopia, but I make him do it himself now, so he's he's okay with. I mean, not that he didn't want to do it himself, but he's okay skipping it. But we do go on it at least every other visit. It's certainly it's part of our Dominating Disneyland week. It's over there, and I like it. I love it. I would say that the thing. So I am saying the most likely that I do think would go is that, but I also think Nemo subs are. I don't enjoy the ride at all. I love it visually. I don't want them to change anything except I don't want to get in it. I'm over that. I don't like the ride. I like the idea of the ride. Yeah. I don't like the experience of the ride.
Nemo is such a tough topic because of that, because it's so beautiful, but it's also the worst ride.
Right. Well, don't touch it. Like I don't.
But how? What do you do? What else do you do with it besides the submarine? What else is there?
You just nothing. You just let it sit there. You let it run idle. I mean, I don't know. And you know what I mean? Like,
well, then you talk about wasted space. I mean,
right. Well, all of that's wasted, because here's the thing: if one goes, they're both going.
Well, that's true. We've said that 100 times that those two are symbiotic.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a good question. I think I do. Let's put it this way: I don't think Autopia is untouchable by any stretch.
No, it's not.
And I do love it. And the problem with losing Autopia is, like I said, what it has going for is nostalgia, obviously. Yeah. But to lose the sounds and the smell, the other senses that you experience with Autopia would be eerie and weird and bizarre.
I would not enjoy.
Like if they converted it to electric, which sounds good in theory, but it would just be odd. Just because you can't hear it and smell it.
I joked once in a show. I said, "Go ahead and make them electric, but you put on the radio or something. Like I still want to hear the sounds. You got to pipe in the sounds."
No, there you go. I'm all for that. All right, well, we got to move along here. I'm bad host today. Bad. we are way behind. But what is something that Walt Disney World does well that you would like to see Disneyland adapt or try? That's from this guy 39 Evan.
They sure have a lot of property. What is something they do well? You know, I love they do Epcot, or how do I put this? I love the way that all the parks connect. There's the different modes of transportation. There's the boats and the whatever, the Skyway. I love the way that they bring the parks together. Obviously, we can't really do that at Disneyland because we don't have the land. But that is a thing that I'm envious of, is the transportation around the different parks. Having said that, there's a lot of things that Disney World does that I do not like, and I wouldn't want to borrow. I can't think of anything. You know, all their little, you know, the Fast Pass Plus I hated. I didn't like Magic Bands. I don't like that you have to reserve everything at Disney World. I don't like that it's so wide open. There's so much that I don't like about it. But maybe it's because I haven't been there. And if because saying all the things I don't like, again, I'm still very, very envious of Disney World. And
Right.
there are days when I'm like, I wouldn't mind being a Disney World vlogger and being able to experience all the different variety of things that they do there. They have a lot to do, and they do events. Oh my gosh, they do events better than anybody. They have an event going constantly there, right? Like at Epcot and stuff. There's always something.
Yeah, that's interesting. My answer is going to be real short and sweet and to the point. So here's a fun fact. I've never been to Walt Disney World. Ever. I've never been there. I will go. I don't want to go and I plan to go. I just have never been there. So I couldn't offer anything of any intelligence whatsoever to that question. Sorry about that, Evan. But I will say this. I think the most important attraction that is not at Disneyland for the aesthetics is the Skyway. So you guys have that, and I want it. And I don't. By the way, I have no desire ever to get on it because to me it looks like a death trap. the original one that was at Disneyland anyway.
Yeah.
But you see photos with that thing, and I remember as a kid, that missing from the skyline is just something that I will never stop preaching about because just the visuals of it, even if it comes back to Disneyland and it cannot carry passengers, even though obviously I don't want that to happen. That's the one attraction, that's the one visual, that's the one thing that Walt Disney World has that I'm envious of and I wish we had, and I can't wait till we get one again eventually. At some point in life, it's going to happen. All right, David. Five things.
Five things Disney.
Yes, our 5 things Disney. This week it is. David, what are your 5 favorite spots to sit, stand, relax, and just take it all in?
Okay, I'll start with number 5 like we did last week, right?
Yes, sir. Works for me.
Jolly Holiday. I love me a coffee and something to eat for breakfast at the Jolly Holiday and just sit there in one of those chairs facing Main Street and the hub and listening to the music and watching guests go by, start their day, and the excitement and the energy and the enthusiasm while just relaxing there. I've done this several times already, spending 30, 40 minutes before I've done anything in the park at the Jolly Holiday, just sitting, just watching.
I agree. It's not my 5, but to your point, it is one of the best locations, especially for dining. And one thing that we often do is get our Dole Whip and walk around to Jolly Holiday and sit in there and do exactly what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
It's a great choice. My number 5 is Cars Land at Golden Hour. Cars Land kind of by flows and that path right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you're sitting there and
sure.
you can face the waterfall, you see the anvil. There's just something nice and peaceful just to sit there, and all these locations that I've picked are kind of people watching things where you just want to take it all in and see the energy. And it's pretty specific to this time. I'll admittedly grab an adult beverage, kind of go over there, sit on the rocks right there, and just kind of watch the waterfall, watch the cars go by, watch the people pass, listen to the cars' music at Golden Hour when it's going over the hills. It's pretty. It accidentally became a spot that I just love to go and sit.
Very good. I like it. I hadn't thought of that.
Number
but
four, we
gonna
going back to you?
Yeah, I'm going to stay in DCA for my number 4 in Paradise Bay. Uh, I can't help it. It pulls me there every single time I go to DCA. I want to go down there and sit in front of the bay and listen. The sounds of people screaming
Right.
on the Incredicoaster and on the Fun Wheel. I'm sorry, Pixar Pal Around. Uh, that is, of all the things that DCA got right, that is the rightest thing that they got right. I love sitting and I don't even I mean, just to stand there and just to stop and listen is and it's beautiful to look at as well, for that matter. But especially, like you said, at Magic Hour. Yeah, I could do that all day.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because I feel like it's almost a little secret in a weird way. Like it's such a great little spot, and you forget that when you go there or whatever, it just feels almost like a hidden gem. I guess it's a little kind of a secret spot that not everybody knows about. I agree. My number 4, the bridge over Pirates. I like to stand there and
Really?
yeah, I like to stand there against the rail and just watch the twain go by. And again, it's people watching, so it's vantage point. You have to your left, you can see down to Haunted Mansion, all the way up the hill, going to Galaxy's Edge, going to Splash Mountain. Just that little vantage point, just that kind of stop, camp, just take it all in, look around. You can see far and wide from that spot, and you can see the levels. You can see up and down.
Yeah.
So it's just a spot I like.
You can't go wrong looking at the Mark Twain and the Rivers of America.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Yeah, you can't. By the way, it's interesting because that is my third one, but from a different perspective. I like to get on a raft, head over to the island, Tom Sawyer's Island, and sit there where the checker table is,
Right.
and or just kind of hang out in that whole Fantasmic stage area, and look. Instead, I'll be looking at you, because I'll be looking at I'll be looking at New Orleans Square and the traffic in front of Pirates and Haunted Mansion, and the people going by. And I like to see guests from a distance like that, where it's kind of muted, and you almost feel like a silent observer in that sense. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to watch guests participate in Disneyland in that way from a distance. And then, by the way, you get the Mark Twain going by, and the Columbia, and the Tom Sawyer rafts and canoes. It's beautiful.
No, that's a great spot. And it was interesting because when I was putting my list together or whatever, it was the difference between where I want to take it all in and be invisible. I want to be in the middle of the action, but I want to be invisible in the middle of the action, versus a location, which to me is a different thing, where you want to just get away, where you want to relax, you want rest. And there's that's a whole different top 5 of places where you can get away.
Right?
My number 3, or did you just did 3?
Yeah,
right?
we're on 3.
3, the China Closet, the porch on the China Closet on Main Street.
I thought you were going to go in the China Closet.
No. The porch. Just sit on the porch. And you know what's funny enough is I've sat there many a times. Like I haven't. It's not something I go to the park to do. I guess if you can catch a parade and you have that spot, it's amazing, certainly. But you know when I've done it most frequently was back in the early days when I joined up with you, met you at the park for Fresh Bakes on our trip reports and things of that nature. Yeah. Sometimes I would be there early, and for whatever reason I knew you weren't going to show up for a little bit. I would just sit there waiting for you to arrive, because we usually started the show right there on Main Street. So I didn't go too far. I just sat there and watched all the people coming into the park. It was just as nice, just that great to see all that happiness, that energy of early morning. Disneyland's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. That's a popular spot for a lot of folks. It's a hard seat to get, though, because there's there's the chair and there's the bench.
Well, I was there at rope drop, right? So rope drop, it's like everybody's doing. They're off to the races. Where I'm like, well, I'm going to kick it here for a minute.
All right, so my number 2 is Town Square. Give me a bench and a cup of coffee or a tasty treat. Put me on Town Square in front of the flagpole, and it's a 360 experience, not just in terms of the view, which is 360 degrees, but 360 in terms of what your senses are getting you too. The sounds and the music and the characters and the vehicles and the guests and the happiness. Oh my God. dude, people are so happy coming around Town Square. I love how happy people are, and that fills me up. That gives me life. All that positive energy happening at Town Square, and I could just soak that in.
No, that's a great spot. Of course, Town Square is amazing. My number two is going to be hard to explain. Maybe. Unless you know the trick. So, like New Orleans Square, like the deck where you watch Phantasmic. So, again, you could see the Twain coming to you. And there's a spot where there's like vents. There's like concrete and there's planters behind you. When you could feel the cold air from pirates underneath you. Yeah. So, I sit in the hot summer days. These are the type of things that happen where I'll sit on a hot summer day there. I've been, on the go all day or all morning. The sun coming out. I just enjoy sitting there, feeling the cool breeze from pirates under my feet. It's a secret spot. And you know what's very interesting? I've sat there so many times. And you see the Twain come by. Of course, it's a traffic area. And so many times that experience of somebody walking by and then they feel the draft from pirates and they go, ooh, and then it's like so enjoyable. And they're like, you're not, you know the secret. And I'm like, yes, I do.
That's interesting. It's like a little secret spot.
Right. You're number one, David.
Number one, and this is a place that one could argue that FreshBaked was built on, and that's the secret path over there between New Orleans Square and Critter Country, the little bridge that goes over Splash Mountain after the drop. That's I fell in love with that place as soon as I started going to Disneyland again, 9-10 years ago, and it is the happiest place in the park. If I'm ever feeling low, if I'm ever feeling fatigued or down or whatever in the park, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, and that can happen at Disneyland, I go to the secret path and I watch people land from Splash Mountain and laugh, and you could 10 out of 10. Never an angry or sad face coming out of that drop. Never do you see somebody disappointed. Never is somebody, not even the least bit happy. It is smiles and laughing, and the guy in the front's checking on the people in the back to see how wet they got, and it is the most beautiful, perfect thing ever created at Disneyland, in my opinion.
No, it is. It's excellent. You can actually see the boats going under you as well too, like at the low level, right?
Yep. Well, there's there's 4 different viewpoints that you could take. I mean, I have my favorite, but you can see the boats from 4 different angles on that path.
Right. No, it's a super great spot. I love that little location. My number one is, I'm cheating my brains out right here. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to do it. So I put the Twain on the top deck of the Twain to stand there, or the train, or the omnibus, because they're all a lot of the same thing. Just getting away and being on there and seeing that move. My favorite thing to do is being on top of the Twain and just taking in Disneyland to go around that loop. I just love it so much. And of course, that exact same experience, but different, can be said of the train. Just sitting there in the sidecar, the one facing the park, just sitting there and going around is so unbelievably enjoyable. Just like you mentioned, just seeing the joy of others is infectious, and it's amazing. And you get the vantage points. You're going from land to land. It's just something. Yeah, I just love it. I just love it. All right, David. So, any closing thoughts on today's discussion before we wrap it up?
Go to Disneyland, have fun.
Fair point. Okay, so that's a wrap. That'll bring us to the end of today's show. Thanks for joining us today for that insightful, colorful discussion about the future of Magic Key Pass, some of the Disneyland's amenities, our 5 favorite spots in the parks. We hope it was, thought-provoking and as entertaining for you as it was for us. As always, thanks for making FreshBaked Presents part of your day, and please review us on Apple Podcasts, and we will be giving out rewards to our favorite reviews. So I guess we'll meet you back here next week. Until then, fresh baked.
Fresh baked.